Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 373, an intro to obedience, part 3, the 3 degrees of obedience. The podcast objectives are analyze one of the more devastating conflicts within your mind, analyze the stakes involved in your battles with nonconformance, and analyze the great power of transformation. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. Your fight with non-compliance. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to Day 141 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we analyzed how our obedience has no value if we are not obedient in all things. And this follows the spiritual laws of mastery. In today's podcast, we will take a closer look at obedience by analyzing its 3 degrees. These will be critical, for they are the elixirs to the 3 degrees of disobedience, and thus you will never eliminate this spiritual disease without them. Per the image to the left, the fundamental degree of obedience is compliance. Along these lines, compliance is designed to defeat the spirit of non-compliance, i.e., the fundamental degree of doubt. Perhaps one of the most obvious disassociations between holiness and lawlessness, compliance and non-compliance go to battle over your planning zone. If you recall, non-compliance corrupts your planning zone by elevating it above your execution zone. In doing so, non-compliance, by manipulating your planning zone, incites you to develop plans that are not aligned with the Father's will for your life. Not only is it contrary to the manner in which Yahuwah designed your thought dimension to work, but it sets the stage for one of the more devastating conflicts within your mind. That is, the conflict between the Father's will and your plans. Along these lines, the spirit of non-compliance gives its support to your plans, while the spirit of compliance gives its support to the Father's will. This should make it very clear which side you should be on if you are to obtain the seal of Elohim. And yet, I caution you to be advised. Your fight with non-compliance will be a heavyweight fight, and it is one you must win. And you will, for you, my friend, have the elixir. You, my friend, will unlock the power of compliance. You can't undo what has been done. Now, the next series of battles we must fight in our war with disobedience is with nonconformance, i.e., the focal degree of disobedience and a very formidable foe. Ergo, the majority of our battles in our overarching war with disobedience will be with the spirit of nonconformance. Per the image to the left, the focal degree of obedience, which is specifically designed to defeat the spirit of nonconformance, is conformance. Surprise, surprise. Now, there are two primary reasons why your battles with nonconformance are the main event of your overarching war with disobedience. And I will offer them as interest points, so you remember them when we analyze these battles at the detailed level. The first reason is because nonconformance is the primary driver of distrust, and distrust by its own power compromise the vast majority of your thought dimension. Ergo, the single source of the vast compromise of your thought dimension, my friends, is the spirit of nonconformance. Now, the second reason why nonconformance is the main event in your war with disobedience is because nonconformance is designed to take over your execution zone. To wit, whereas noncompliance is designed to take over the development of your plans, nonconformance is designed to take over your actions, i.e., the works by which you are judged. Here lies the problem, and an even greater problem we will encounter than with noncompliance. To wit, not only do we often operate outside of any real planning effort, but plans can also change, which helps neutralize the threat of noncompliance. And yet, this is not the case for your actions. To wit, you can't take back an action. You can't undo what has already been done. And this is why nonconformance is the weightier matter of the two. Ergo, as we consider our battles with noncompliance to be a heavyweight fight, the stakes involved with nonconformance are even higher. And yet, you will succeed them. You must, because again, you, my friend, have the elixir. You, my friend, hold the key. Transformation is the power. Now, the third and final series of battles we must fight in our war with disobedience is with complacency, i.e., the critical degree of disobedience, and another formidable foe. This should have been very clear if you listen to End Times 368, How Disobedience Plagues the Mind, Part 5. In that podcast, we revealed various key facts concerning complacency, all of which testify to the immense danger of this critical degree. To wit, complacency is the most prominent stronghold the enemy will establish within your mind. Not only this, but complacency compromises the full breadth of your thought dimension. Along these lines, every degree of lawlessness that is plaguing your mind at this interval is designed to achieve one central goal. That is, to maintain the stronghold of complacency, as this will allow doubt and disobedience to reign in your mind forever. Ergo, all the strongholds of doubt and disobedience are designed to support one, vis-a-vis the stronghold of complacency. Now, the reason why all the degrees of doubt and disobedience are designed to maintain the stronghold of complacency is sure, and it is so crucial that I will offer it as an inflection point. If you didn't bookmark it then, I advise you to bookmark it now. As long as the stronghold of complacency is maintained, you are positioned to be afflicted by all the degrees of lawlessness. and complacency is the only degree of lawlessness that has this testimony. I could go on, but this inflection point pretty much sums it up. Complacency is a sore evil. To wit, if you fail to reign over this degree of lawlessness, you will never reign over one. Per the image to the left, the critical degree of obedience, which is designed to defeat the spirit of complacency, is transformation. It's not the most obvious disassociation, but it is, rest assured. We know this first and foremost because it is impossible for you to experience transformation in any vein if you are complacent. To wit, complacency is the primary obstruction to transformation. Listen to me. This is the primary reason why complacency is so perilous. Remember, the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life is established upon our transformation into the image and likeness of Yahushua Messiah. Ergo, if we are not being transformed, then we are not being set apart. And if we are not being set apart, we will never be saved. This matter lends itself to a key revelation, which I would advise you to bookmark and never forget. Now, the same way, all the lines of holiness are expressions of faith. All the precepts of holiness are models of transformation. Ergo, as we walk in the way of holiness, we are transformed from faith to faith. For look, listen, it has been written, for therein is the righteousness of Elohim revealed from faith to faith. For our transformation is the power of Elohim unto salvation to everyone who believes, for the just shall live by faith. Per the image to the left, obedience and all the intervals of holiness are all prominent nodes of transformation. To wit, the fear of Elohim is a node of transformation, confirming we are men and women of virtue. Likewise, wisdom is a node of transformation, confirming we are men and women of knowledge, to wit, the knowledge of the Father's will. Then again, endurance is a node of transformation, confirming we are men and women who are temperate in all things. The same goes for the models of joy, meekness, and mercy. You can even put holiness in this sequence, for holiness is the ultimate goal. To wit, every sequence of transformation is designed to make us holy through set apartness. This is why Yahuwah commanded our forefathers, saying, "Be ye holy, for I am holy." It's because all spiritual relationships are established upon the precepts of spiritual compatibility, and we should apply the same rule to the natural. Ergo, where there is no compatibility, there can be no relationship. And thus, we must be holy if we are to be restored and reconciled to our Creator, such that we can have a relationship with Him, defined by the spiritual lines of sweet communion. See, sweet, sweet communion. And this, my friends, is why I have been ultra focused on our transformation into the spiritual image and likeness of Yahushua Messiah from the very beginning of this podcast ministry. And it is why the Spirit led me to name this podcast Transformation by Truth. It's because the 64 degrees of holiness are all designed to help you achieve this one goal: transformation. Listen to me. The same way complacency opens a door to all the degrees of lawlessness, transformation, my friends, opens a door to all the degrees of holiness. And in doing so, transformation, more than any other degree, opens the door to everlasting life. Therefore, I advise you to pay special and close attention to the upcoming lessons, for the knowledge we share on transformation is transcendent, and you will need to refer to this knowledge often as we progress into future series. Now, here is the final word. If you want to break the norm, comply, conform, and be transformed. My dear friends, you must believe me. This is very sound advice vis-a-vis the call to break from the spiritual norm, the status quo, the raucous rock, and give yourselves to following the precepts of obedience. For look, listen, it has been written, wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter in through it. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, this is the straight gate. This is the narrow way. We know this because it is founded upon obedience and faith, and it will only be mastered by those who are prepared to guard the commands of Elohim, come what may. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today, and as always, ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. For the children of Elohim live by conviction, and if he has not convicted you, or if you had not heard him concerning these matters, you should pray until you do. Today, I want you to meditate on the word of truth that was shared. I want you to focus on what you learned about the 3 degrees of obedience. And I want you to especially focus on transformation. Along these lines, I want you to consider and appreciate how transformation, as a critical degree of obedience, is the highest form of affliction we experience in the way of holiness. To wit, it is a powerful yet painful process. Now, I don't say this to discourage you. Rather, I am saying this to prepare you. Listen to me. Transformation is both difficult and demanding, and thus you must be committed to completing the process. For that reason, I advise you to go back into the archives and listen to End Times 294, the purpose of the sealing of these set apart ones, part 1. In that podcast, I liken the process of transformation to spiritual surgery. In doing so, you will see how transformation is the daily death we are dying. For this is the only way we can cleanse ourselves from all sin. And should a man complete this work, should he be transformed by his death and yet die with this hope, he shall live again. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 373, an intro to obedience, part 3. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 374, an intro to compliance. I will post this podcast on Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. Until then, my friends, Continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch. Continue to pray. Continue in fasting. And most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.